Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation.
Today's podcast we're covering what we never, ever thought we'd cover. 2023's The Flash movie.
Believe it or not. And this movie has seen more than its fair share of controversy, from Ezra Miller's behavior off-screen to David Zaslav's decision to cancel all the projects, and Warner Brothers' absolute determination to get this movie out and make people love it as much as Zaslav. Now, that it's long past its release and is free everywhere and anywhere you can imagine, watch it. Is it actually good, or is it as bad as it looks? But before we start,
be sure to like, subscribe, click notifications in future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
We want to preview this by saying, when we decided to watch it, we decided not to take into account any of the off-screen things that Miller has done. We wanted to judge this based on the quality of the movie, the performances, the writing, the cinematography, the special effects, what a movie should be based on. So we're not going to bring that up, except to say that his antics off-screen really destroyed any possibility that this movie would be successful.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because
the movie was at least decent. It was a decent movie. It wasn't great like they were praising and making it to be, but it also wasn't the worst film DC ever made. It had some faults to it.
With a few tweaks, it could have been great, including one decision that we didn't understand why they made it, that could have left this being probably a summer box office success despite what had happened.
Right.
So first, we're going to tell you it's a superhero movie you probably know, based on the DC Comics character, The Flash. And they gave the impression it was going to be based off of the Flashpoint Paradox movie, which we own, animated, but it's loosely based on it, and that was the first mistake they made.
Yes.
So starring in this movie, you got Ezra Miller, Sasha Kyle, Michael Shannon, Ron Livingston, Maribel Verdú, Kiersey Clemens, Angie True, and Michael Keaton. And I have to say,
and they
people were right, Michael Keaton was the best part of this movie.
Yeah, and remember all the time while he was the GOAT and everything, they were hyping him up, man.
Movie has a running time of 144 minutes, a little long. It should have been shorter for one thing.
Yeah.
Budget of between 200 and 220 million, grossing 271 million at the box office.
Okay, it did better than Wish, so.
So, we'll tell you the things that worked about this movie first, and then what didn't work, and why it could have been a success despite what happened. So, first thing that worked, special effects. Fantastic.
Yeah, there was a lot of use to it in the movie, but they at least made it look good. It didn't look uncanny. There are a few places where it looks like they didn't really need it, but they at least made the best of every effect they used, especially when they used the super speed effect, and when they were going through these different timelines that looked like one big rotoscope going constantly around.
And also, when Ezra was pretending to be two different Barrys, you could not tell that it was not two different people. You would look at it and think maybe his twin was acting. Because a lot of times when they do the multiverse theory, you have two people or a twin, you can tell it's the same actor. But this time you could not. And on top of that, another plus is his performance. You really believed it was two different people. And it's not the fact that Ezra can't act. It's the fact of Ezra's behavior off camera. He was actually fantastic in this movie. He is a great actor. And it's unfortunate that everything else is infringing upon that.
Yeah.
Because again, with the special effects and his performance, that worked out. Another thing was fantastic was Michael Keaton. He absolutely, positively was.
Yep, and if you remember when this movie was advertised, a lot of people were hyping up Michael Keaton. DC was hyping up Michael Keaton as the sole part to remember after the things happened off camera with the actor. They started to rely on Michael Keaton to carry the film and be the reason people showed up to watch. Like, okay, you may not like Ezra Miller anymore, but at least watch it for Michael Keaton and support him instead without saying it. So that's what people end up doing. They just ignored the main actor and watched it for Michael Keaton instead. And I guess in a way it did pay off for them.
Now here's the thing with that though. He couldn't carry the whole movie. His part, his contribution was fantastic. You loved it. You wish it being longer. What I personally would have wished is it was a whole different movie with his Batman starring. That would have been great.
Yes, it actually would have been.
Another surprise was the performance of Sasha Kaye, I think that's how you pronounce her name, as Kara Zor-El in Supergirl. We had seen so much online about her outfit being ugly and the type of Supergirl she's playing, and people thought it was going to be woke and that she was going to ruin the movie, but guess what? Her performance was actually really good. And she was very convincing. And the outfit wasn't distracting. You really didn't think about it.
Yeah.
And when you saw her part in the movie, it actually made sense and it worked. It was a different take from Flashpoint.
Right.
But no, she didn't ruin the movie. And her performance in the movie, she was really good. And you actually, for the short time the character was on screen, you empathize with the character. And you wanted her to succeed. Unfortunately, she gets killed off multiple times, and we didn't like that part.
Right.
But I have to say, Kaye did a good job.
Yeah, definitely. And the other actors did pretty well in their performances too. Even when you had Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot briefly appear in the beginning of the movie, they did their bits kind of even though they weren't necessary for the film.
So is there anything else you would say worked for this film before we go to what didn't work?
I guess it would be a clever thing of having each timeline, every time the timeline changed, Batman was played by a different Batman actor.
Yes, it was
they
actually
had
fantastic.
Ben Affleck in the beginning, the timeline changed, it was Michael Keaton, timeline changed again, it was
George Clooney. And the only one missing was Val Kilmer,
Right.
and I didn't understand why they didn't have his Batman in here.
Right.
But that, you're right, it was actually brilliant. The end of the movie was a great ending to it, and too bad there won't be a sequel. The ending was great.
Yeah.
Now, what didn't work for this movie? Oh, and the other thing was the cinematography when the two Barrys were working together to beat Zod, and the special effects for that were fantastic.
Yes, they were.
Now, what didn't work, might as well say, General Zod. He had no business in this movie. Why on earth was this villain a part of this movie?
And I think they were trying to say this was taking place during Man of Steel, but because Barry changed that one thing, put a can of tomatoes in the dang basket for the mom, all this crap happened. So in this timeline, Zod succeeds in killing Superman long before he's Superman. He takes him out when he's on his way to Earth and destroys him so that way he can't beat him when he gets to Earth. So when he gets there, he easily takes out Supergirl and he wins and he starts to take over Earth. And they're trying to stop that from having him killing off Supergirl, but nothing happened. It looks like the timeline that happens in here is Zod wins and rules the Earth.
And that was the big problem. No matter what happened, you know how they like this, oh, no matter what happens, this was meant to happen. So they kept being killed over and over and over. And no matter what they did, there couldn't be a different outcome. And we really didn't like that part.
Right.
Now, if any of you have seen the Flashpoint Paradox, you know that is in there as well. We didn't like it in there as well. Which brings us to a third problem.
Yeah.
Why on earth did they stray from the Flashpoint Paradox scripting?
Yeah.
If they had stuck to that, this movie would have been fantastic. That was a hard-hitting movie. It was dark. And the first time we watched it, it left us like, what did I just watch?
Right.
And the second time we watched it, we knew what to expect, so we could appreciate the techniques and the writing and what the writers were going for.
Yes.
But they didn't do that in here. As Rascal says, part of the problem is they said it's a superhero movie. It ended up being
a comedy. They never advertised it as a comedy superhero movie. It was advertised like it was a slightly lighthearted DC action superhero movie like you've seen others. But the way they had in here, it was almost like watching the Shazam movies. It was half of the time it was a comedy. They used playful music. Everything he did was a joke. And they were saying they were trying pretty hard to have him have the personification of Tom Holland's Spider-Man. They basically wanted this Barry Allen to be the equivalent to the Tom Holland Spider-Man from the MCU and have their own version of it. And half the movie is a comedy. It only stops being a comedy when they get to fighting Zod and taking it more seriously. But majority of the film is very lighthearted up until that point. And none of that was in the trailer. It was always treated as it was a serious storyline because Flashpoint Paradox is serious. We watched the movie, even the end credits with the dog falling through the sky and him getting hit by different things, and it was a humorous song in the background. Nothing fit. It was all comedy, and it didn't work.
True.
They're trying to make Flashpoint into a comedy.
Now you helped me remember one or two things we forgot to mention that did work. One was that opening sequence that you're talking about. You'd never seen anything like that done. If you haven't seen it, go online and type in the opening scenes from The Flash, where he saves all these babies at one time in creative ways, and that scene was breathtaking.
Yeah.
And it was clever, and it was great. That was another good thing. And the last good thing we forgot to mention is Henry Allen being in here. If you haven't seen the Flashpoint Paradox, Barry goes back in time to try to prevent the murder of his mom and the wrongful persecution and conviction of his dad in the mom's demise.
Right.
And want to point out that this actor actually replaced Billy Crudup. We don't know why. If you know, let us know in the comments. But in here, he gets justice and he's freed. That was also a good part, a positive part.
Right.
Another thing that didn't work was Kiersey Clemons as Iris West. I'm sorry, she did not work at all.
And she was barely in it on top of it.
We understood the point of putting him in to give him a love interest, like a shout out to the CW, Barry Allen.
Yeah.
But she just didn't work. She wasn't likable. It didn't feel right. She didn't feel genuine. What did feel genuine, surprisingly, was Miller's portrayal of a love-struck guy. You believed it.
Yeah, surprisingly, yes. And this also portrayal of Barry Allen, I think they were a little confused on what to have him as, because like we said, they want him to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man for DC. When you saw the Justice League movie, both that and the Zack Snyder version, he acted like a young teenager. And in here, he's still young, but he's in his 20s. And the way he kind of acts, he doesn't act like... I get every version of Barry, they kind of act a little differently anyway. They don't really have him as a regular adult. They still keep his job the same, but his persona is like he's a timid teenager. But then when you see him as a teenager, he's not really timid. He's stone high like Shaggy, making jokes, really big innuendos and vulgarities and things, and was just a mess in college. And it's almost bizarre that he acted like a teenager in this current timeline than he did back then. And then they did not have where he goes to the future. He ends up stranded in the past, so they reversed it, and he's dealing with himself rather than a future outcome. So all of the Justice League characters, aside from Batman, don't exist or haven't been born.
Which doesn't make sense and totally just ruined what it is they claim they were trying to do.
All those storylines never happened now.
And glad you mentioned that, because another pointless thing was Wonder Woman and Ben Affleck's Batman showing up. The scene was useless and pointless, and it should have just been left out.
Yeah, that was another humor parts.
It wasn't humorous, and it was superfluous and unnecessary. And they could have spent time working on a better script, having something more in from Flashpoint Paradox than that. And nothing against Gal Gadot and
Ben Affleck.
Yeah, nothing against them.
Yeah, I
love them and definitely love her as Wonder Woman, but their cameos in here just
made no sense.
Didn't work.
And that was part of the humor, I guess, but it didn't work. Same when they had a scene where Teen Barry lost his clothes running too fast, which made no sense. I think that was them trying to be like a nod to like Spider-Man still not in the Avengers and accepted by the Avengers, so the Flash isn't accepted by the Justice League. They were there to just be fan service in terms of, oh look, you love Wonder Woman, here's Wonder Woman. You love Batman, here's Batman. Aren't they funny? And it's like, can you stop being just cringe funny with using these characters to just say, hey, you like them, here they are in the movie. It's it's actually kind of insulting. You think that's enough to get people to be quiet.
And one of the last insulting things about this movie is the adaptations of several DC characters made cameo appearances through CGI, including Henry Cavill.
Yes,
and Nicolas Cage.
And
actually, he filmed some additional scenes for his role, and they de-aged him.
Yeah.
And you had Batman 66.
And I think Christopher Reeves.
Yes.
They used his face without permission.
Captain Boomerang.
It was like,
Jack
what was the? We didn't even catch half of this stuff.
You had so many of them CGI'd into it. It was a
just
great idea on one hand, poorly executed in the other hand.
Yeah.
So if they had found a way to bring these together respectfully, I should say, and the people who are alive actually being in the movie rather than using their visages because you didn't want to pay them.
Right.
That ruined it.
Okay. Yeah.
So at the box office, it flopped, but the critical response, mostly it was given a 63% by Rotten Tomatoes, whom we don't listen to, but 63%, and most people giving it a 6.3 out of 10. After seeing it, I think a 6 is a fair rating for this
Very
movie.
fair, yeah.
It could have been an 8 or higher with some of the changes that we recommended.
Right. We don't think it's the best super movie ever made for DC, but at least you could tell before drama happened, there was effort put into it.
Absolutely. So with those changes, it could have been a better movie. So we give it a 6 as well, which I think equates to maybe a B minus or B.
Yeah.
Yeah, a B. I think it equates to about a B or a B minus. But with some better changes, it could have been a strong B plus or maybe even an 8. And boys and girls, mums and dads, this just proves to you that antics off camera can burn you professionally.
Yeah.
So this is a lesson to take from Ezra Miller, and seek help when you need it.
Yes.
And don't do things that affect you work-wise, especially when you're making millions of dollars per project.
Yeah.
And we're not going to make fun of him. We're not going to comment on the things that happened.
Right, that's
Again,
not
we're
the
only
place
talking
for it.
about this movie. Could have been a great movie, had the potential there, better writing, sticking to the Flashpoint script, not using CGI of people that are alive, and Zod being in here, superfluous cameos by Wonder Woman and Ben Affleck Batman. It could have been a better movie.
Yes.
So if you've seen The Flash 2023, let us know in the comments. If you haven't, it's available everywhere for free. It has been since it was taken out of theaters.
Yeah.
We just resisted watching it for a year and finally gave in. Since it's free, why not? Superhero Month. And come back and let us know what you think. Do you agree with some of our comments? If you don't, tell us. We really would like to hear what you think.
Right. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, movie reviews, favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. And thank you for supporting us, joining us, subscribing. Feel free to share this video. It helps out our channel a lot. And again, thank you for allowing us to share things that we love and some things not so much. You are our special.
So, thank you so much for watching. Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.